What happens when two apex predators meet in the same territory? When you built an empire on respect, what do you do when someone publicly challenges that respect? And when a dinner invitation becomes a declaration of war, who walks out alive? This is the story of the night John Gotti faced his most dangerous rival, and why Little Italy never forgot what happened inside Umberto's Clam house. It was a cold Tuesday evening in Little Italy, March 1986. The kind of night where the smell of fresh garlic and simmering tomato sauce filled Mulberry Street, mixing with the exhaust from passing cabs and the faint aroma of espresso drifting from every doorway. Street vendors were packing up their carts. Old Italian women pulled their coats tighter as they hurried home from evening mass at St. Patrick's. Neon signs flickered to life in restaurant windows, casting red and gold reflections on wet pavement from an earlier rain. But inside Umberto's Clam house, the air was thick with something else. Something you could cut with a knife. Tension. The restaurant had a history. Everyone knew it. Back in '72, Crazy Joe Gallo had been celebrating his birthday right here when gunmen walked in and changed his life expectancy to about 30 seconds. The bullet holes had been patched. The blood had been scrubbed away. But the memory that stayed. And tonight, that memory hung in the air like cigarette smoke. John Gotti, 47 years old. Slicked back hair with a perfect side part that caught the dim restaurant lighting just right, not a single strand out of place. A $3,000 Brioni suit in charcoal gray, tailored to perfection by his personal guy on Mulberry Street. The fabric moved with him like it was part of his skin. White shirt, crisp as fresh snow, silk tie in deep burgundy, with a perfect Windsor knot. On his right pinky finger, a diamond ring that cost more than most people's cars, 3 carats, flawless clarity, catching light every time he lifted his espresso cup to his lips. At 5'10", Gotti didn't dominate a room with size, he dominated it with presence. With that calm, calculating demeanor that made men twice his size uncomfortable. The way his eyes moved slowly, deliberately, taking in everything. The slight tilt of his head when he listened. The way he could sit perfectly still while everyone else fidgeted. He sat in the back corner booth. Always the back corner. Always facing the door. That wasn't paranoia. That was survival instinct honed over 3 decades in the life. Across from him sat Carmine the Snake Persico Junior, acting boss of the Colombo crime family while his old man rotted in a federal cell upstate. Younger, hungrier, and dangerously ambitious. At 38, Carmine wore a black leather jacket over a silk shirt, the color of dried blood, gold chains visible at his neck, catching light whenever he moved. 3 chains, Gotti noticed. Too many chains meant you were trying too hard. A diamond stud in his left ear, hair slicked back but not quite right. A little too much gel making it look wet instead of polished. His hands moved constantly, adjusting his collar, reaching for his water glass, drumming fingers on the white tablecloth. Nervous energy. Or maybe cocaine. Probably both. His father was serving 139 years, and Carmine was determined to prove he was more than just a legacy, more than just the son of a boss. He wanted to be the boss, not just of the Colombos, of all 5 families. He'd been making moves, expanding into Gambino territory in Ozone Park, skimming from joint operations in the Fulton Fish Market, taking a bigger cut from the unions than what was agreed. And worst of all, he'd been talking, loud, in public, at the Ravenite Social Club, at Sparks Steakhouse, at the Bergen Hunt and Fish Club, about how the Dapper Don is all style, no substance. About how Gotti's too busy getting his picture in the paper to run an actual operation. That kind of talk. That couldn't stand. That's why they were here. 2 soldiers flanked each boss. Gotti's men, Sammy the Bull Gravano sitting to his left, stone-faced, not touching his wine, and Angelo Ruggiero to his right, a big man going soft around the middle but still dangerous, with hands like catcher's mitts. Both men wore sports jackets that didn't quite hide the bulge under their left arms. Carmine's guys looked younger, hungrier, cheaper suits, more gold jewelry, more attitude. One kept glancing at the door. The other couldn't stop staring at Gotti. Neither was good. The restaurant had cleared out. The owner, a small man named Petey, with a limp from the old country, had quietly encouraged the regular customers to finish their meals and leave. A $50 bill pressed into the palm of a confused tourist couple, a whispered family business to the regulars who knew better than to ask questions. Now just the 6 men at the back booth, Petey behind the bar, wiping the same glass over and over, and one waiter, young kid, maybe 20, scared out of his mind, standing frozen by the kitchen door. "You got some balls, Carmine," Gotti said quietly, stirring his espresso with a small silver spoon. His voice was calm, almost conversational, the kind of tone you'd use discussing the weather. That made it more terrifying. "Coming into my neighborhood, after the disrespect you've been showing." The spoon clinked against the cup 3 times, then stopped. Silence. Carmine leaned back, trying to look relaxed, trying to match Gotti's calm. But his jaw was too tight. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Your neighborhood? Last I checked, Little Italy don't belong to nobody. It's neutral ground. Free territory. Switzerland, right?" He laughed. "Nobody else did. Neutral ground." Gotti nodded slowly, that diamond ring catching light as he set down his spoon precisely next to his cup. Everything Gotti did was precise, deliberate. "You been watching too many cowboy movies, kid. This ain't the OK Corral. This is Little Italy. And in Little Italy, there's history. There's rules. There's respect. I ain't no kid, John." Carmine's voice rose slightly. His hand moved to the table, fingers splayed like he was trying to claim territory. The 2 soldiers flanking each boss shifted in their seats. Angelo's hand moved inside his jacket. Sammy's eyes narrowed. "And I ain't scared of you. You might have the papers calling you the Dapper Don, the Teflon Don, all that bullshit. But that's what it is. Bullshit. You're just a guy in a nice suit." The waiter approaching their table with more bread suddenly remembered he had something extremely urgent to do in the kitchen. The swinging door slapped shut behind him. Petey found another glass that desperately needed polishing. "Nobody said you should be scared," Gotti replied, his tone still calm, almost friendly, like he was explaining something to a child. "But there's a difference between brave and stupid. Your father, God rest him while he's still breathing, he knew that difference. Carmine Sr., he was smart. He knew when to push and when to hold. He knew how to read a room. He knew how to show respect even when making a power play." Gotti leaned forward just an inch. "You? You got your father's name but not his brain." Carmine's face flushed red. "Don't you talk about my father. He's worth 10 of you." "Maybe," Gotti said. "But he ain't here, is he? He's in a cage, and you're here, making the same mistakes that put him there. Loud, sloppy, greedy." That's when Carmine made his mistake. He reached for the breadbasket in the center of the table, casual, just reaching for bread. But his right hand, his gun hand, dropped below the table for just a second too long. His body tensed, His weight shifted forward. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Angelo's hand was inside his jacket. Sammy's chair scraped back an inch. Carmine's own soldiers froze, eyes wide, suddenly realizing their boss might have just started something nobody could finish. But Gotti didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't blink, just locked eyes with Carmine and smiled. A slow, patient smile that never reached his eyes. The kind of smile a shark might give before it realizes you're not worth the effort. You really want to do this here, Carmine? Gotti's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but it carried. Every word clear, every word heavy. In Umberto's, where Crazy Joe got whacked 14 years ago, you want to make the same mistake he did. You want to be another cautionary tale told over coffee and cannoli. Carmine's hand came back up, empty, holding nothing but air and regret. His face had gone from red to pale. You was just what? Gotti leaned forward now, voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Everyone in the room leaned in to hear. You was just testing me, seeing if I'd react, seeing if the rumors are true that I've gone soft. He picked up his espresso cup, took a slow sip, set it down. Or you was just being disrespectful in a place where respect is the only currency that matters. Where respect is the difference between running an empire and being buried under one. The silence stretched. 10 seconds. 20. You could hear the kitchen clock ticking. You could hear Petey's breathing from behind the bar. Then Gotti snapped his fingers. Once, sharp, clear. The front door of Umberto's opened. Not the sudden crash of a raid. Quiet, controlled. 4 men entered, moving like they'd done this before. They weren't Gotti's men. They were wearing Colombo colors, leather jackets, the wrong kind of jewelry. These were Colombo soldiers, Carmine's own crew, but they didn't move to protect their boss. They didn't draw weapons. They didn't even look at him. They just stood there, hands visible at their sides, eyes on the floor like school kids called to the principal's office. Carmine's face went from pale to ghost white. Frankie, Tommy, what the fuck are you? They're here because I asked them to be. Gotti said simply. You see, Carmine, when you've been talking loud about respect, about taking over, about how you're the new generation and we're the old guard, you should make sure your own people respect you first. I had a